Hey guys, so it's time we finish up with the project, so to speak. In other words, get our worm done. Um, remember, if you remember correctly, my UVs were not exactly up to par, and the reason I made them, actually, I should probably show this to you. I'm just gonna hide these things here. Um, if I select this guy and go into UVs and check my UV editor, you will notice that these UVs do not comply with the previously established rules that I have told you about, meaning the having a UV cut on a hard edge, that being mandatory. If we take a look over here, my cuts are not on hard edges, and that in itself is fine. However, if you remember correctly, I have a hard edge over here. If I turn off the grid, my hard edges actually don't possess any cuts. And the reason I did this, and this overall shape here, just to show you how seams work. Basically, I wanted to use UE4 as an example of what would bad UVs do to you, and then after we would be done with the logical side of it, so that we would have our gameplay done, in other words, have actual game ready, we would have to replace, basically dive back into Maya, talk about the UVs, get all that shit redone, and then go into Painter and get everything painted. Now, in general, you would probably want to do that. At the very least, you'd want to obviously have a prototype running with a not so high effort meshes with the placeholders, etc., until you have your base gameplay done, and then you start replacing assets. In our case, we have a very small game, and like I said before, there's no need to go into full on mode. And obviously, everybody has their own pipeline. I honestly prefer in most cases to have my stuff presentably done, so that once I make the game, I could release it, and then I could iterate on it. Not as in, I wouldn't be required to iterate on it on the asset level. In other words, if I had like a sword fighting game and my swords were actually just cylinders, right? It's entirely possible for it to be functionally playable. However, I would be required before release, or even at release if I'm daring, to actually replace these assets with real swords, which would kind of limit my ability to afterwards amend other problems within the game if I find any. All right, so in this case, I just wanted to show you as well how to transfer attributes, especially when it comes to UVs, since remember, we don't want a lot of history on our object here, right? We actually currently have one transfer attributes from before. Don't remember when I did that. Let's see if I could delete this thing. Delete by type history. Yes, unfortunately, I can't get rid of this input, which is very, very bad, honestly. Now, if I really wanted to get this right, I would duplicate this guy and rebind it, copy the skin weights. This would get rid of this input. Now, in my opinion, this is not really going to be that big of a deal. I think we're not going to create any problems with this. However, we do need to create another set of UVs. Why can you not cut UVs on top of your rigged mesh, you might ask? The reason for that is because as you're cutting, you're going to be basically generating inputs from your cuts, and once you unfold, there's going to be another input, so you'll end up with a huge input history here. You might say, well, it's simple, just delete the history. Sure, but as you can see, sometimes history does not actually delete properly, and you might have some leftover baggage that you don't really want. Look, at the end of the day, you simply want your skin cluster to be here, all right, and maybe the layer, which in this case it is. However, if we duplicate this, you will notice that if I actually select this and I duplicate, well, I already did. So if I select this guy, the only input is my layer, and I could just remove that. What did I do now? I could just remove that and have the input empty. Basically, I would have this object empty. Now, the reason I duplicated this thing, by the way, is not only so that I could explain to you why would you want that and how would an actual clean clean mesh will look, would also be the reason where we want to UV this guy and then transfer the attributes on top of the other object. Now, obviously, if you remember correctly, once you skin a mesh, all these channels get locked so that only the joints can drive the vertices, etc., in the mesh itself. Now, since this is not skinned, I could easily unlock this and just move it out and do some changes if I want to, such as topology changes, geometrical changes to the shape itself. But since we're only going to be doing the UVs, I'm simply going to isolate this guy. And you can tell that I'm actually holding the, what's its face? The duplicate here is because there's a 1 over here, right? And I'm just going to name this UV proxy, right? This is my UV proxy. So we can work on this guy. And in order to do that, we simply need to project another set of UVs. I would just use a camera base, like I said. Look, you could use all of these, but to be honest with you, since you're going to be cutting and unfolding and sorting out your UVs anyway, there's really no point. So I'm going to, camera project this, and I have my symmetry on already. We could just get to cutting. I have a feeling there's something here I'm missing. What's that white stuff? It would appear. Oh, right. Okay, never mind. This is due to just the camera projection over here. Not a very good projection. Anyway, let's get to cutting. So I'm going to go into my UV shell, and I'm going to start cutting using my 3D cut and sew tool. Go into align mode. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Just like the last time when I was talking to you, Jesus, why is there a cut here? What the hell is that? Seems to be some issue. I believe this just might be a rendering issue. I don't know what this white dot is. I haven't seen it before. Maybe the unfold will sort this out for us. Anyway, what I wanted to show you is the fact that it is entirely possible. I should turn on the grid though. Entirely possible to use the to basically make this into a fully symmetrical shape. Okay, since these are, well, not shape, but symmetrical UVs, and stack all of them. Now in this case, if I were to do something like this, right, I would have my cuts ready, and I could just stack these on top of one another. Obviously, once I finish these. So as you can see, I've got two separate shells, but since they're identical, and if I unfold this right now, I could just stack these on top of one another, and painting on one will actually reflect these. The changes on one side will be reflected onto the other. Not to mention, if I really wanted to go the hard way, I could just grab this and create 4 shells, and I could even do the same thing over here. And this would allow me to stack these 4 together and stack these 4 together. I would save I would have basically a lot of texture space to work with. Whereas in this case, if I don't do that, if I simply just close this and close this, and yeah, these are 2 separate shells. So as you can see, there's really it depends on how you want to approach this. Now, if I go ahead and unfold this, which I'm going to be doing anyway, so I'm going to go into my UV shell mode, select these UV shells, and press D. This will run the unfold command, which it might take some time. Now, like I said before, there's a guy who made a script which replaces the unfold 3D algorithm with the legacy. It allows you to, it's not as good as the unfold 3D, obviously, but it's a lot faster. Actually, it's almost immediate. And it allows you for fast iteration when you're cutting UVs. Not a big deal here, because obviously there's only 2 shells. But if you got a weapon like a gun or something, and you'd be cutting a lot of UVs, you might just want to take a look at your layout, at your shells laid out, sort of. You could use the legacy unfold. Obviously, it's possible to unfold using the legacy just by pressing a command and then just spamming G to run this at the same time. However, in this case, I'm just going to be using the default unfold hotkey, and there they unfolded. If we take a look here, we've got our 2 shells. Now, there's not really that much work to be done here. I'm just gonna exit my tool and go into UV shell mode and just select these 2 shells. And where's my layout? Arrange and layout, and I'm just gonna lay them out along the V. Lay this guy out along the V as well. I should probably orient this guy first and then lay them out. Just lay both of them out. There we go. Generally speaking, by the way, now in this case, I laid them out in a pretty shitty way. In fact, I should probably optimize these. Where's my optimization? Fold, optimize. Not the tool, just the thing. And this is much better. I'm going to exit the tool and re-lay out these along the V. Obviously, I think if you right-click, shift left-click, or control left click, or shift right click. There was a way to click these with the options. All right, shift left mouse button for options if I want to optimize this. So my guess is the same would be up. I thought you could do the same with the layout. Whatever. Point is that you want to have some room between these two. You want to allow for some bleed. So I'm going to grab this guy and just move him up. Obviously, you could just use the transformations here. I believe you could. Oh, not the transform. Where is it? Where are you? Align and snap. You could just put them up, for example, here, or in the middle, whatever floats your boat. You could use these things, right? But anyway, normalize. Like basically, you got a lot of tools here to play with. But in general, this is fine with me. Obviously, this is not the most ideal. But remember, you want to have your checkerboard to be square. You don't want to have this to be too squashed, so to speak, as you can see here. Now, I'm not entirely sure how Painter will react, actually. I try to always stay within squares, but if you so desire, you could just export it like this and just see what's going to happen. Now, I'm going to do this later by my own because I am curious myself, but there's a little task for you. If you want to see why this is a bad idea, just export it into Painter and see if Painter will react somehow to this particular shape. Now, in my opinion, Painter will have some way of counteracting this just by maybe having some weird transformation folding. I don't know, for the texture itself, for the for the paint when you paint on it. But at the same time, it's good practice to have them squarely like this. Okay. Anyway, now that we are done with our UVs, I should probably just turn this off. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to select my object, and I'm going to remove my isolation here. I don't want it isolated. And notice my inputs. Look at this shit. Like there's a bunch of different. There's a lot of inputs, and that's not what you want on your rigged mesh. Now here, I could just delete the history, the entire history on this object. I'm going to do this so that you know that I'm doing this instead of just using my shortcuts. Now the history is clean, and I still got my UVs. Right? And that is all we need from this model. So what I'm going to do is basically open my outliner, select my source, select my target, and then I will go into, well, what am I doing? I will go into transfer attributes over here. Since I've done this on other, when I was explaining the transfer attributes thing, I think I used the UVs as it is. So I'm going to, all right, let's just reset this guy. As you can see, it just transfers the color sets as well. I don't need that. And UV sets, we only got one, so I'm just going to use the current, but it doesn't matter, whatever, right? Use the world as well. The world sample is usually best as long as these guys are on top of one another. And then you've got mirroring, which we don't need. You don't want to flip any UVs, nothing, right? So it's a very simple transfer. And obviously, we're going to use the closest to point. Although we have the exact same topology, so we could use the topology here. We could use not the UVs. We could use the local, maybe. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the local bit does. Anyway, I'm going to transfer these guys, and we should have a functioning UV set on our original mesh. There it is. So this is our skin mesh. Notice that there's still there's a transfer attributes number 3 here. Now, generally speaking, if I delete the history, this should go away, but it does not for some fucked up reason. And you don't want to delete your entire history because this will just delete your skin cluster and your weight paints will be gone. Now, if you really want to go ahead and just be very clean with your geometry, well, with your export, you would really just duplicate this guy and just rebind this thing to the skeleton, which is over here. As if you remember correctly, this is our skeleton. I would rebind this to the skeleton, and then we would transfer the skin weights onto it. But since I really don't think the transfer attributes input is going to be a huge impact onto our export, I'm going to leave it in as it is right now. So we'll see what happens, right? It could be for the better or for the worse. Right, we've got this done, but there's one more thing. We need a high poly. Now, I've gotten through the trouble of creating a rudimentary high poly, nothing too fancy. If I actually select this thing, there we go. Nothing too fancy. Not a lot of polygons, only 30,000 polygons or so. Oh, sorry, my bad. 400,000 polygons or so. As you can see, the geometry is kind of just a little bit of spikiness. That's what I gave it, right? There's these little spikes here. Nothing fancy. And I've also added a color ID map. Now, what can we do with this? Why did I actually do this? And I should probably delete the UVs on it, but it's fine. They might come in handy in the future. They should be the same anyway over here. That's close enough. yeah, basically the same UVs. So over here, the reason I did this is because in Painter, we could use this as a color mask. And the reason I, by the way, wanted to color mask this, obviously this is not a complicated object and you don't really need the color mask, but I really do find it that it'd be nice if our players could actually differentiate themselves with the color and not have the color be uniform, right? You'd want to have, for example, these stripes here, the teal stripes be the color that changes, and the yellow stripes, the yellow bits would be your body color, and that would be like permanent. Or maybe we could give the player an option to change the color. And one more thing I forgot to mention, by the way. Just as Painter recognizes two different materials, as you can see over here, I've got two material sets. I've got my body and my stripes and my body. These are the two materials that I'm using on this object. Just as Painter will recognize these two and will create texture set for each part that has this material on it, it will also the same will happen for Unreal, and each of these materials will create a material slot so that you can basically put whatever material you want in it and then drive it. Now in our case, we're not going to do that because we don't need two texture sets, although the game obviously is going to be very easy on the hardware. Probably will barely even register when it comes to it. However, you want to stay optimized in most cases anyway, so it's good practice to try to minimize overhead when it comes to memory. So in this case, we could maybe use the same mask in Unreal as we do in Painter, which is entirely possible, since we only need an alpha basically, right? You just drive the alpha through and then there's your map. Okay, that being said, I think it's important we transfer some of this stuff over. Sorry, not transfer, but we use this as our high poly object. In order to do that, however, we need it to be zeroed out. So if we take a look here, it's not in the zero, and we need it to be zeroed out. So I'm going to do exactly that. And I will hide it for now because I simply want to export my low poly. Like this. Now, obviously, in this case, it's not really important that they're cold, low, or high because it's a uniform mesh, and we're not really going to be having parts. Now, if I really wanted to, go gung ho on this, I would probably cut this out, right? Cut the bottom bit out and do the same thing in my high poly and my low poly, so that once I bake, I'm not going to get an issue here on these close edges. Not to mention that, remember, they're not beveled, right? So this might create a problem for me, especially since this is a hard edge and the surface itself is sort of bent, right? So we'll see what happens. This isn't the hardest edge, but they're close enough in their appearance, I believe. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, that's the difference in our meshes. This is easy enough to project onto a normal map. This might create a few artifacts here and there, but shouldn't be that bad. We might have significant problems over here. We might run into some issues over here, but in general, we should be fine. Now here, I don't know how. No, I don't know how different this object is. Let me just isolate it. Now we'll be fine. We'll be fine. It should be sort of okay. There's not that much of a difference where I was painting this stuff. Obviously, I had a couple of urges to go into Mudbox and do this by hand there. By the way, when you have your high poly object and you paint sets on like a particular detail on it, you could also after that drop the smooth, like the divisions, right? You can have it subdivided 10 times, for example, and then you could drop the subdivisions in, and it will still remain. You can see what it is when it's low. You could work on the lower subdivision level, and you can just pump it up, and it will translate the changes that you've done. The brush strokes they'll be translated onto the higher poly object with the more divisions. Obviously, Mudbox is much more superior for that because each subdivision is actually its own layer instead of just a number in the attribute editor. Okay, that being said, it's time to export. So I'm just going to hide this guy for a second. And we're going to grab the low. And then I'm going to, actually, I should probably first start with the skeleton here. I grab the skeleton. I'm going to go and select the hierarchy. Remember, you want to do that. And then I will select the mesh. Now in the hierarchy, if I just get this out there, We don't need a lot of stuff. We don't need the central parent, the root parent. We don't need the curves. We don't need these effectors. The only thing that we need to export is our skeleton with our mesh. Well, actually, before that, we need to freaking triangulate. So probably I should do that before I start exporting. So let me just select this. Oops. Why am I still in object in this mode? So let me just select this and go into triangulate. That's my triangulation done. Not the prettiest result, but it'll have to do. And then obviously I'm going to go ahead and select this guy. Actually, before I do that, let me just, yeah. So let me just select this thing and go back into my select hierarchy. Deselect these things here. Don't need the curves, don't need the parent constraints, nothing like that. I believe there's nothing else to select. And then we grab this over here. And yeah, we could, well, I'll autosave. We could just export right now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send this to Unreal, send the selection, and I'm going to name this. Now remember, this is our first initial export. In this case, we'll be naming this low. And I will actually demonstrate in Painter why is that. You know, how can we suffer some problems with this, all right? So all we need is our smoothing groups. We don't need the animation because obviously we have the animations exported separately. We also don't need any cameras, lights, audio. No need to embed any media. No children input connections. We don't want this at the very least. Well, technically we do, but that shouldn't be a problem, I believe, in our case, because we got our skins, I think. Yeah, we don't need animation, I believe, in this case. Shouldn't be a problem. So I'm just gonna go ahead and export this thing using the FBX 2016-2017. Gonna export the selection, and we got a problem here. Mesh nodes with unsupported operators affect the vertex interface count. To correct this, delete the non-deformable history before exporting. Okay, this I might have run into a problem. So this is exactly what might happen. In this case, I lost my, I kind of need to redo this. So what I'm going to do now is actually undo my triangulation. And we're going to have to rebind this guy. So let's go ahead and just do just that. I'm going to duplicate this thing because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select my original object over here. I'm going to unbind the skin by keeping the skin weights. Where's my skin? There we go. Unbind skin, and I will keep the history. All right. So I'm going to detach this. That's fine. Now I'm going to select this object here, and basically select the entire hierarchy. Well, just the skeleton, but just go ahead and select this whole thing. Don't need the parent, the curve, this crap. Don't need this crap. Don't need this. Don't need that. Simply select the roots, and then obviously the mesh itself, which is our duplicate, and I will do bind skin. Where's my skin? Bind skin. It doesn't really matter in this case what we do. Just bind the skin. Should be fine. It'll take a while. Oh, did it bound already? That was quick. That was real quick. So as you can see here, we've got all of that stuff done. And now we need to simply transform. Actually, I'm going to delete the non-deformable history on this guy. Still got the tweaks. It's quite annoying. Then we select the low, which is our source. Grab the other one, and I'm going to close this thing because I don't want my color sets to be here. All right. So we select the low, so select the source, select the target, and then we need to transfer our skin weights. Copy skin weights over here using the closest point on surface. Closest point, closest, we want to normalize, copy this stuff over, and we should be good to go. So in this case, with the low, now we got our skin weights, and you know, if we are to go ahead and check if this works, we should probably actually get pop out the time editor, and we need to load up some clips. Let's see, we've got our compositions. I'm just going to load up this composition. Come on then. Come on, dude. Where's my stuff here? Okay, you're for real. Where's my animation track? Kind of lost my track. Okay, let's see if the animation is just added to it. I believe it should be. Range, oh no, time slider. Let's see if there's still there. Okay. There's something happening here. I'm getting extremely low frame rates. Let's just ignore this for a second and go back to 0. Which object am I looking at right now? Okay, this is the one. This is the unbound one. If I hide this, yeah, now this is much better. So we've got our animations. So let's try and export this guy again. Grab the skeleton, grab the object that we got, just the skin cluster here, and I will simply, first I need to triangulate, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and triangulate this, then grab the skeleton, select by hierarchy. We don't want these, this, and this. Oops, and that. And then select the object, which we already triangulated. Then we're going to do the same, send to Unreal, send selection. Gonna just reuse the same settings, and we should be. What the fuck, man? I don't understand. Oh god, I forgot to triangulate before. This is bullshit now. Okay. Okay, let me just see if I could delete this using the non-deformer history. Okay. Let's do this again. Jesus Christ. Select hierarchy. And deselect this, and this. Select this thing, and then export selection. Well, send to Unreal with the selection, and get rid of this guy. Finally, Jesus Christ. Now you actually, now this gives you a clear idea of why, you know, of why you want to have a clean model. All right. Well, all you really want is the skin cluster. Like, we don't really need the inputs here, but, you know, if you got a layer, it'll be fine. So let's just see if we've exported this correctly. And actually, before I close this and create a new scene, I'm simply going to go ahead and export my high poly. I've grabbed it, and I'm simply going to go ahead and send to Unreal as well. Notice that when you send to Unreal, there's no such issue. We don't really need the smoothing groups on it either, since we got nothing. We don't need the animation. We don't have any animation, no lights, no input connections, nothing like that, just binary. And I'm going to call this worm underscore high, and I'm going to export the selection. Okay, great. This is done. Let's go ahead and open a scene, well, a new scene, and let's import our little object here. Okay, I'm not going to bother with this. I'm just going to go ahead and open the export folder. Where do we go? Import. There we go. Low and high. Let's grab the low, since that's the one that has the stuff in it. What, did I just forget something? Let's see if it works. Oh, crap. Yeah, it seems like I forgot to export something here. What exactly is that, is the question, though. I got all my models. Oh wait, I don't have any animation. I forgot. But the question is, does this thing move with the joints? So let's just go ahead and see here. Yeah. So the joints move, which is basically what we want. Probably I should have my X-ray joints on, but if I can find it now, where is it? Just display. Where's my show? X-ray joints? No. Where's my thing view? Okay, I kind of forgot where the freaking X-ray joints are. Oh, there we go, X-ray joints. Let's just go ahead and just select this, for example, and rotate this guy. Yeah, so we got sort of the right idea here when it comes to the joints. So this is working. Model is bound. Really, we could, for example, get rid of the tweak. I don't even know how that happened. We could, I'm just not going to bother with the tweak at all. We could maybe get rid of this, this mesh's connection to the layers and simply export it without the layers as well. For some reason, it actually did export, even though I selected no children, no inputs, whatever. Just got to use the layers bit here. Anyway, this is a good export. We're done in that particular sense. I'm going to delete this guy because I don't need this. And let's see if our high poly as well has been properly exported. Well, actually, it exported hidden, which is not very nice. But yeah, high poly is also fairly easily transported. So what we need to do next is to hook up our little version control system here, right? Because we want to be version controlling this for one particular reason. Actually, before we do that, I just want to show you how I want to show you how version controlling actually will work here since the new update on Painter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this project, and this project is actually an older version, so we're going to have to update this. Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. We actually have to we have to go into P4V, and there's my local host, Flintstone Space. Everything is saved up nicely, so I'm going to open this thing up. And let's just check out the whole Worms volleyball thing. I'm going to go ahead and check it out. Where's my checkout thing? There we go. Control E. Oh, I don't have any changing paint list. What the hell? Did I just say check in by my bad? Yeah, check out. Okay, fine. Let's use the default change list. We don't have any others anyway. There's my default change list. I've checked it out. And now I will update the thing into the new engine. So it will be changing most of the stuff. Is my engine running? It'll load up momentarily. Now we need to run the painter, by the way. So what I'm going to do is while this is loading, well, I'm going to wait for it to load just in case. But once this thing is loaded, there's our thing. Asset Discovery. We've got everything, new plugins available. I don't want any friends. I don't care about friends right now. Well, everything is nicely checked out. Just wait for it to compile shaders. Let's see what plugins we've got available, and that's the new substance. So I'm going to enable this. This is exactly what you want. I'm going to restart the editor. It should be ready any moment. It takes longer to load than before. They've added a bunch of stuff actually. They have the cloth here. We don't have to do cloth in Maya, which is amazing. So we've got this thing running, right? It's great. However, there's one thing missing, and then actually Painter is not running. So I'm going to go ahead and open Painter. So it loads as well. So we've got our little trio of stuff. We might not need this just yet, but as you can see, we've got our import this and this and this, and see exactly in the depot, we're only using the config and the content. Now in this case, we'll be adding the import as well. Reason for that is because generally speaking, you want to be, how should I say it? You want to be having a version control on your imports as well. Now, of course, you can have this stuff here once you import it. It's completely fine since it is inside your content over here. Where's my, not content, I need to go higher. Can I go higher? I can't go higher, it has to be in content. So I need to import from the import folder. Now that's not what I'm gonna do right now. I just wanted to show you something that's gonna happen after I open something. Actually, let's just go ahead and import this thing real quick. Where's my content? I don't want any content. I want to go into import, and I'm just gonna grab the low guy, or maybe the low guy here. Let's just grab the low guy here. I'm gonna import this. I'm not gonna do anything right now. I simply want to uncheck. Where's my animation? No animation, nothing. I believe. Do I have my collision here? I have only one material. I don't want any. Skeleton mesh, blah, 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 blah. Import animations. No. Okay, well, that's great. We don't have any mesh imports. So I'm just going to import this guy. What is that? FBX, and the FBX file is not referenced by NER. That's fine. Okay, so what I want to do right now is, let's say I'm going to grab this worm and I'm going to put him over here. Obviously, it's a very small worm, and it's not really shaded because, like I said, if you remember correctly, we had nothing here when it comes to shading, and our worm is quite bland. Now, obviously, in our materials here, I could just grab something and say, oh, I just want to make this into a walnut wood. If it compiles, I should probably compile this thing first, or oak. None of this stuff is compiled. That's unfortunate. Why didn't it want to compile? Okay, we got a different color sample. All right, that's not. Never mind. The idea here is that I want to basically send this guy into. I'm just going to use form 1 here. I'm going to drag and drop this guy over here. That's form 1, and obviously, if I decide to, I could change the color of this thing, like so. All right, like its base color, I just grab this and let's just say it's red. Should now compile. There we go. We've got our compilation done. I could save this thing, for example, but I won't. The idea is that now our object is red, and let's say that this is our final player character. Obviously, we could scale this guy up. Well, if I grab all 3 of them. So I could scale this guy up. I believe, for some reason, my Z is actually... Oh yeah, that's right. That's the right size. Anyway, I could keep scaling this guy up, and he'll be doing just fine. What I really want to say here is that now I can send this guy over. I don't want to say this. I want to send this guy over to Painter, right? So what I'm going to do is simply right-click and send to Substance Painter. Now this will basically do several things. First and foremost, it'll open it in Painter like this, and we got our live link set up. We got everything successfully imported, exported, and you will probably be familiar with this view over here. Now what I'm going to do is a very simple, so I'm just going to search for something in the shelf. Let's say, I don't know, is there any, we got any skin? If we search everywhere, of course, not in the alphas, just skin. Yeah, we got feverish skin, whatever that is. So let's just color this guy in feverish skin. So this is our skinny worm, and the cool thing is obviously that this stuff gets automatically updated in Unreal. So as you can see here, we've got our skin updated, and obviously I could just keep, let's say I want to paint something on it, right? Or maybe I could just replace this thing entirely and say, well, I don't want the skin, I just want the some facial thing. Or maybe we got scales. We got any scales? No. I don't know. Let's just go into our smart materials and see what happens. Maybe just regular materials. Aluminum, gold pure. No, these are like metals and plastics. Don't want that. Let's see if we got any smart materials that we could use right now in this particular instance. Obviously, if you have Substance Live, which is very handy, by the way, over here, if we go ahead and take a look at Substance Live, you can download a lot of stuff that will save you a lot of time. Now, obviously, since I have my Steam version, I actually do not get. I did not get the. I could just download this. It looks nice. Okay, I'm gonna deal with this shit later. But I want to simply go ahead and show you that there's loads of different assets here which you could use. These are really well done, by the way. You understand? You could save you a lot of time, especially since these are smart materials, and you can basically you can randomize within these parameters, and literally this would cover almost every need you have. So let's just go ahead and search all categories for skin, scales. Scales, so we got synthetic scales, grass foreman, armored dragon scales, right? Or you could have some kind of leather. You got loads of leather, so you could use this, for example, as a worm, or maybe this. I don't know. Do worms have, like, I don't know. Let's see for skin, what kind of skin we got. Loads of skin. You got 40-year-old fucking foreheads and loads of skin. Like, just if you want skin, you're gonna get a lot of skin. Right? Organics. Let's see what we got in organics. Bones. Well, loads of stuff, really. So generally speaking, you'll be just fine. You can even have an eye, like an eye socket, like an eye, Swiss cheese, like loads of these different stuff. Obviously, you can make your own in Substance Painter or even in Designer if you really want to go the full stretch. All right. Anyway, what I'm saying here is, obviously we don't have any maps here, so we're not really going to get such a good result because we haven't baked any over here. If you take a look, by the way, notice that with the 4.0.4 with a 0.4 release, you actually have a little bit of a difference in terms of the layout. Obviously, you can you know, lay these things out the way you just the way you like it, but whatever. So I'm not gonna bother looking for something impressive here. Let's just use, we could make maybe just baseball hat. Let's try baseball hat, see what happens if we got the baseball hat. Yeah, baseball hat does not look that good. Definitely not. Oh wait, we got some leather, so I'm gonna use leather rough. This is a rough leather. If I delete this, would be nice. Rough leather. Yeah, something like that. You know, you can play around with this guy. Maybe you could use leather seat. Yeah, there's your worm, sort of, kind of. You can change the color of it, obviously. But obviously you get the results over here in Unreal immediately. That's the nice bit. Now, there's one thing that you need to understand. If we take a look here, you can see that we've got a .sp folder. Now, this basically means the .sp folder contains our it contains our what's its face, substance project files. These are what it is, substance project, and we need to actually version control these properly so that nobody can open these at the same time, right? So if you're working on whatever it is you're working, you want this to be open only by you. Generally speaking, we need to talk about the type map. So what I'm going to do is just write the CMD and say P4 type map, and it should open up, and this is our old type map. Now notice that we've got all the binaries for our original you know, setup here for this folder, right? And basically Perforce knows which of these are which, right? So binary +1, that's the important bit. Now binary +W essentially means that it is a writable binary, okay? By default they're all writable. Well, not writable, but they're writable even while not checked out. At least that's how I understood it when I was reading the documentation. So you could write onto the executable, the DLL, right, the library file, right? But these are regular ones, and depot, these are, you could actually diff against these, but we need to add some stuff. So what I'm going to do is just going to say binary +1 / depot, and I'm going to say how many dots was it? 1 2 3 4, and I'm going to say SPP, which is, SPP basically is a binary file which can only be opened from one spot. Okay, I should technically do the same for SPP .painter._lock. I'm just not sure what the purpose of this file is, because it disappears after I close you know, after I close the Painter. Now I haven't exactly been how should I say, it's a new release, so I'm not entirely sure what to do with this file. I might have to exclude it completely, you know, just set this up so that this file is ignored. But as of now, let's see if we could just set this up. I'm not sure if there's a command to ignore. Perforce ignore file type map. I think there should be a reference over here. There it is. And let's see, we've got ignore. P4 ignore. Is this going to give me an ignore? Ignore object file share. Yeah, so you could just add this to your P4 ignore, right? Actually, it's even in your EDK file, so it's fairly easy to find. So if you ever need to, you could just add this object here to your ignore file set, since it's been generated on the fly. Let's see. Maybe I should do this right now, or maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. In any situation, you want your type map to have. I believe there is an ignore here. Is there? Must have the commands. Form fields. Where's my commands? Must be a command. Let me just see here. Perforce type map. All right, this command reference. Not command reference, but file types. There we go. That's what we want. File types. Let's see if there's an ignore. No, there's no ignore. You got to go into your P4 ignore. I kind of thought that you might be getting away with your file types over here with these keywords. such as this, right? You got exclusive open, which is the +1. That's what we're looking at right now. There's obviously others. You could, you know, see what this is, you know, how it works. But for now, we'll just save this as it is, and with the .spp being a binary file, I'm just going to save this and close it. And our, this should be say error detected. What does that mean? Oh, did I just screw something here? Screw something up here? Let's just see here real quick. Binary, we got a binary, yeah. Is this really a non-text file? Maybe this is not a binary file. Okay, I'm gonna have to get back onto you with this because it might be a different story. All right. Binary +1. This should not be an issue. Let's see if I could say it. Is this a text then? That's interesting. Is this a text? No, this is definitely not a text file. This should be a binary file. .spp. This should definitely not be an issue. Did I mistype something? No, I didn't. Let's just say that it's writable then. What's going to happen now? Type map saved. Did I just... Is this +1? This is +1, isn't it? Or is it? There we go. Oh, this is L. Oh my god, this is a freaking L. My bad, guys. I'm sorry. Just... for crying out loud, dude. It's a freaking L. Tell me this doesn't look the same. Like, see, this is bullshit. Jesus Christ. Okay, just save it right now and just fuck me. There we go. God damn it. I thought it was a +1 all this time. I thought it was a +1, not an L. I was wondering why is it a +1 and not just an L since it's locking. Jesus Christ. Or an E since it's exclusive. But now it has to be an L. All right, never mind. Sorry, this is a small little rant. Fuck me. Okay, I'm just going to close this guy. And, look, we'll sort out the painter lock. Obviously, you know yourself at this point. You should be fairly agile within this whole system to figure out. Oh, do I need to? You know, how do I need to address this file or that file? Maybe you should add this to your P4 ignore. Maybe you shouldn't. We'll see. It's up to you. Anyway, point is that this is a very nice and fancy way of you know, working, and you want to have it source controlled. So essentially, what we would do. Actually, I should probably go ahead and just delete this real quick, because I don't want to do this just yet, since I want to go through the proper import procedure here and explain what the importing, you know, how it's imported and what to import, etc., etc. I'm going to delete this thing. Actually, I should just delete this from the scene first, and then I should delete this thing. Delete it. Being to reference and memory, skeleton mesh. I don't care about the memory. Just fucking delete it. No need. There we go. Okay, so now we're good to go. Actually, I could even just close this without saving. Don't save. And I could commit the SP folder, which was created here. As you can see, we've got our SP folder. Actually, I should simply go back into here and show you one more thing before we finish this video. Notice that our entire SP folder is part of this story, which means there actually other possible folders over here. So you want to be source controlling, adding your SP to your source control and your import to your source control, since one is the stuff that comes from Maya and you might want to have it versioned. However, this would mean that every time you import something into Maya, you want to replace a particular file, you will need to check it out first and then check it back in. Now, the whole situation here is up to you. I'm going to skip this step because I can't be bothered with the Maya swatches. I have no idea what these files are. I think they're binary, and this is essentially you know, the what's its face, the thumbnail on the mesh that you exported. However, that being said, you may not want to be exporting with the mesh. This is basically a Maya folder. Is in this particular folder is just for Maya, so you can essentially ignore it for your source control. If you so desire, you can version control it, whatever. It's up to you. I'm gonna skip the import folder because I'm not a big fan of it, or maybe I will. I don't know. It depends on me. We'll see. However, as of now, I'm just gonna keep it the way this is. I'm gonna add only the .sp folder to the you know, to the mark it as basically to add it to the depot. All right. So let me just check this back in. Oh, it's not checked out. It should be checked out. Yeah. I'm going to revert this then. There we go. Revert the unchanged files. This should take a while. There we go. They're all reverted. We haven't changed. We changed something apparently. And I will. Well, they're not even checked out. So whatever. I'm going to add this to my depot. I'm going to say here. It's all marked for add. And I will submit this stuff. This is all checked out. Revert. Well, just revert regularly, sorry. Revert. And revert this stuff. I don't want to change anything. So we only want to use our, you know, we're going to add this stuff over here. And now I'm going to submit, basically. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to submit this. I'm going to say, hooked in the substance project folder generated by the live link. There we go. And basically that's all we need to do. I'm going to submit this. It'll take a while. Submit change, one file added. There we go. So from now on, this folder is also you know, in the source control. If we take a look at that depot, we got our SP and you know, whatever it is. Now the procedure is basically the same for your import, and you might want to add some ignores, but notice over here that we actually do not have this object. So sorry, the log file right over here. Nothing, it's gone. All right, so that's one thing that you might want to consider. Obviously you might want to delete this. I probably should have deleted this, but whatever. Let it stay here for now. I'll clean this up after that. But what I wanted to explain to you is that you really want to have a proper set of version control so you don't burn yourself later down the line. What you want to do in the end, it's up to you. Depends on how you want to work. Just make sure that you're backed up and you know, not only backed up but also available to be synced up with other people's projects. All right. So I'm just gonna close this stuff because there's really nothing else to check out. It's all checked in, all nicely connected. I'm closing this, and this will be the end of our video. Since in the next video we'll actually be talking about well, how to you know, what kind of maps we're using, what is a map, right? What are different types of maps, what's color, you know, basic stuff like that. So we'll definitely talk about this in the next video. I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand the process here. Now I hope I wasn't too annoying with that bit where I kind of got stuck on the +1 side, because I kind of thought this is really with +1. I should have worked, but just to reiterate, and we finish with Maya completely, right? Make sure you do the following steps if you want to change an already rigged object, okay, an already rigged mesh. You want to make sure you duplicate the guide. Actually, whenever you export something, you want to make sure, if it's rigged especially, you want to make sure that it's got nothing on its history but the skin cluster, and you know, maybe the layer stack here might actually be added as well. It's not going to be a big deal. Okay, you make sure that your objects are all zeroed in, all zeroed out, in other way, they're both at the origin of your world, or in other words, they must be on top of one another, so that once you start baking, their transforms won't get in the way. That's number 2. Number 3, make sure that after you, if you really want to UV or change the topology or do something onto your original object which is already skinned, you need to duplicate this object so that it gives you a clean object with a clean history. Unbind the skin, okay, of the original object, but save the history for the skin cluster because you want to copy the skin weights over after that. Do whatever it is you have to do on your duplicate, okay? And if the duplicate only has a UV set, you want to change the UVs on your original object, you can simply drag the duplicate over to the middle, to the center of the world on top of your original object, and simply transfer the attributes in the form of UVs. Or you could simply bind, if you're changing topology as well, or even the shape, you could simply bind your new object to your old skeleton and copy the skin weights over from your duplicates, sorry, from your original, so that you don't have to repaint everything, right? Depends obviously how big of a change you've made, and you know, sometimes you might see issues, but you could always play around and, you know, figure out how it works. All right, that being said, You also want to make sure that you have the right understanding of what kind of materials you're importing and exporting, since each material creates a slot in an array, which will be read by Painter and Unreal Engine 4. Now, obviously, both have pluses and minuses, as I've already explained. One is easier on the memory, the other one is more robust, so to speak, but it also requires more memory. Now, in the future, Painter might be able to collapse your, all your different models here. So if I go ahead and just open Painter again, just to tell you what I mean, there have been talks like this before. So I just don't know if this will ever get implemented, because it's been 3 years since people have started to ask this stuff. So I'm going to open this again over here, and I'm going to say, okay, let's just use desktop test, whatever. I think we had different, where's my IDs? There's the texture set IDs. These are the tests here, and as you can see, we got the details in the Fong 1. There is a way right now to actually collapse these, so you could work with these two, and then you could merge these two texture sets together. But it is like a process through Painter where you need to actually create a material that merges these two together for you. It's kind of like a backwards way of doing it, but it is possible. It takes about 10-15 minutes at best to get it done. Sorry, like at worst to get it done. So you could be pretty fast and efficient if you really want to. You could even write a script if that's your thing to do it for you. However, as of now, this is obviously not not happening. I hope by the time you're watching this, it's actually possible, and this whole ID jumping is pointless. But an ID map will always have its place, especially for masks, etc. Since even though you could have different texture set, there's always times when you might want a separate mask for something. I could have like a red color being the face, or just the eyes, right? You want to mask out the eyes so you can paint just on the eyes. So you could basically paint the eye color to be red, and then if you want to paint only on the face but not the eyes, right? The face would be blue, so that whenever you paint, you could paint only where the blue color resides. All right. Yeah, that's it, guys, for this video. Next time we'll be talking, we'll start basically working with Painter proper, and I'm going to explain to you different concepts of, what is color basically, and how color works, and PBR, etc., etc., etc. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.